I guess just how everybody kind of come back with a refreshed attitude. How were the mood when y'all got back Sunday?
Yeah, it's been good. We had a good bye week, good little bit of rest, a little extra time to focus on our opponent. So that's always good. So I felt like everybody was able to just come in this week and start it off fast, playing fast.
Just obviously you got a break in between, but these stretch of games. I mean, kind of just one after the other. What's kind of been your experience so far playing in this SEC West division?
It's been good. It's been good. It's been more physical. It's been more of a challenge, but that's what I wanted. That's what obviously me and my teammates want. You don't want to go out there and play patty cake games. You come here to play in big games. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know everybody says they want to play Alabama. It's always one of the bigger games on everyone's schedule. How excited are you for this game?
I'm very excited. I'm glad, we're playing at home. And, we try to take the mindset, that they got to come here and play us. We try to flip the script on that.
Talk about the rest over the bye week. I mean, was it hard to kind of, keep away from what was kind of going on in the college football landscape, while you're trying to get some rest?
Well, we were watching games. I was watching games last weekend. You see the stuff. You see the scores pop down on your screen on ESPN. So, we know what's going on, but, we're just focused on what we got going on here.
Obviously, two big running attacks this past two games at LSU and A&M, and another one in Gibbs, Alabama. I don't know how much y'all have watched yet, but what do you see in him and kind of the challenge he poses?
I mean, he's a hell of a receiver, so he's obviously he's a hell of a running back, their leading rusher, but, you can't forget that he leads the team in receptions too. So, that's another focal point of what we got going in this week.
Obviously, another mobile quarterback in Bryce Young. Everybody knows what he can do. But for you, are you kind of excited in that challenge on Saturday?
Yeah, very excited. They got a good offensive front, so it's going to be good work. Bryce is a hell of a player, great escapability. So just going to have to be super detailed in our rush lanes.
Just kind of curious of your overall impressions of the Alabama team after, I'm assuming you watched that LSU game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the SEC. Teams lose big games, teams win big games. This is a great team we're going to go play. Their record means absolutely nothing in our preparation. We're just looking at, personnel, players, and, how we can fit everything up and, scheme it to give them the best challenge that we could possibly give them.
Are you expecting this game to be the loudest game of the year?
I would hope so. It's at the bot, so, yeah.
I mean, you and your teammates talking about getting better, every single week and all this sort of stuff. As from the time you got here to now, where do you feel like your game has kind of, evolved into trying to go to the next level?
Just playing bigger, faster, and stronger. Coach Joyner's a pass rush guru, so just getting me right, in that department, and just also feel like, especially from when I first got here in the spring, just playing to run better. Just being more stout.
Remember when we talked to you a few months ago, you talked about, when you were at Georgia Tech and you always wanted to play in these sorts of games and you didn't get the chance to there. Mm-hmm. And just for you personally, just how exciting is this this is why you came here, right?
Right, no, it's super exciting. And, I'm almost glad that we get to play them later in the season, and just be as comfortable as possible. And obviously we're playing at home, but it was a great experience playing in College Station, playing in Death Valley. So, that's a piece of what you come here for, and I'm very thankful to have experienced that.
Obviously, everybody kind of knew what might have been at stake if the result had been flipped LSU. But for y'all as a team, y'all just kind of focus on, kind of keep that outside stuff outside. I mean, how did y'all kind of focus with what that game could have meant for y'all?
It's simple, man. You just you don't eat the rat poison, right? You stay off Twitter. You turn your phone off, and you just come here and get work.
Just your experiences in bye weeks, maybe just from high school, from where you are right now in your college career, with those games kind of following the bye weeks, have that usually been kind of a boost in your elevation of your game and your production, just in any of those games?
One more time, excuse me.
Just talking about your overall experiences, in games coming after a bye week. How often have they fared for you?
Definitely feeling more fresh. If you do it right, you're living in the training room, getting your nutrition right, getting your sleep right. You just naturally going to have more energy going into it, just being able to play faster.
You kind of said it in answer, but rat poison and Kiffin mentality and kind of got it from Saban. But have you ever kind of been around a coach who kind of uses those terminology and just ways to block out stuff? I mean, what is that like internally with how he approaches that with y'all?
Yeah, I mean, every program I've been a part of, there's been stuff like that, and that's been a focus, because especially when you're playing on a good team or a bad team, football in general, basketball, volleyball, all these fans, they have opinions, they pay money to come see these games, they feel entitled to opinions. And, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but we know what the truth is. We know what's going on in here. We know that they only see the product, so there's no point in focusing on it when you're just in it. Thank you, guys.